Hello again, folks. Mr. Lubkowski here for second section. So we've gone through on the previous session what kind of the creative task is, what the different kind of briefs you can do, and I am going to do 3 examples for you to kind of look through. And I had said that this next section, I'm actually going to not removing a section, but I'm kind of going to combine 2 together because actually looking at my schedule, I don't think I actually need to split up tips and tricks and theory. I'm going to do both of them in this session. So there'll be 1 less session to go. I don't think there's necessarily a need for the 3 p.m. session. So I'm going to kind of use and do another example one. So theory. This is theory and tips and tricks. So it's kind of it's a number of different things. So first things first. If this is a relatively big if you already know all this stuff, then you're absolutely fine. You don't need to worry. So you'll probably get an idea. You can probably skip through some stuff. But generally, for most of you, the chords and stuff, I just need to make sure we go through. Okay, I'm going to assume that you're picking something like chord sequence, but it would work for a set of words as well, and it would also work for melodic phrase. And they're the 3 I'm going to be focusing on because there's 3 that seem to get used more often than not. So, first things first, you need to work out what key you're in. Okay, what key you're in. And that will give you an interrelation of what chords you want to be using. Okay. So if, say, for example, I'm just going to type in something into... Okay. If you have decided and you have worked out that you are... Where are we? Okay, yes, let's just bung that there. If you've decided that you are in a certain, if you've worked out that you're in a certain key, so say that you're, for example, you've looked and said, okay, we're in G major. You might want to have something, by the way, print something like this. This is just the circle of fifths. Okay, it tells you the key signatures for each of the keys, and we've looked at this before, and I think you even had versions of this before, going back. They're freely available on the internet in images. There's you type in circle of fifths. There's loads of pictures that come up. And this gives you your chords, your interrelation of chords. Say that we're in C major. Let's go for a simple one first. Say we're in C major. We've got C is our chord 1. Underneath it is its relative minor. They share a key signature. Okay, to find a relative minor, you go down by 3 semitones on the keyboard. Okay, so from C, you go down 3 semitones. That's to A. Is the relative minor of, okay, like so. To the right, from C to G, if you count up, C, D, E, F, G is the 5, okay? Chord 5, the dominant. So the dominant is there, and underneath its relative minor, which is chord 3. If the capitals are all major chords, the small case in this example are all minor chords. F is chord 4, so C, D, E, F. And again, it's a major chord with 1 flat. G has 1 sharp. D minor being... Oh, sorry, I'm tired today. D minor being the relative minor of F major. And that actually gives you those 6 chords we've been talking about. 1, 4, 5 in major, 2, 3, 6 in minor. Okay, so it's useful to have something like that there, and that tells you what chords you potentially are going to be using. You then need to know what the notes of the notes in that triad is. Okay, so if I just quickly go through, diddly-doo. Now I'll do it on Excel for the moment, but you'll get the idea relatively simply. So I would say, therefore, I'm in C major. Okay, chord 1, chord 2, chord 3, chord 4, chord 5, chord 6, and just for having it chord 7. Okay, which again, if you got the chords and cadences sheet, it is a diminished triad. 1, 3, 5. Okay, so what I'm going to do there is C, D, E, F, G, A, B, just the scale. That's the first note of the chord, and then the 3 would be E, F, G, A, B, C, D, like so. And then the 5th is G, G, A, B, C, D, E, F. Okay, that then gives you all the notes for all the chords. Okay, pretty simple, really. But I say it's simple. If you don't do this, you're going to create problems for yourselves. Okay, it doesn't take you long to work this out. Now I've put the 7th because chord 2 and chord 5 are likely to have the 7. Okay, so G, B, D, and F, D, F, A, and C. Okay, so chord 2 and chord 5 are more likely to have a 7. Okay. Oh, whoopsie-daisy. Underneath, I'm just putting... That's the Roman numeral thing when we talked about inversions. Okay, so hence a 4B would be a 4 chord, F major, with an A in the bass. Okay, so when you look at things like inversions, you want to have stuff like this. Again, it only takes you a minute or so to be able to kind of populate this. Okay, but you want to have something like that. You need to have something like that because that gives you all the chords that you might potentially use. Okay, that gives you not just the chords, but all the notes. It also, if you've written it out, it means that you can look at something like melodic phrase and say, okay, well, there's a G in that melody, so it's either chord 1, or it's chord 3, or it's chord 5. Okay, therefore, it can only fit with 3 chords, and then you can hence work that out and go, which sounds best. Okay, so it's problem solving. Of the easy kind. So, the next thing would be to decide on a chord sequence. Okay, now you've done this before, and I'm not going to go through that now, but therefore for you to decide on some kind of chord sequence. Once you've got the chords, if you've chosen chord sequence, you'll want to extend that chord sequence. Okay, something like this as well. You want to have. Let me just quickly copy this and put it there. Say, for example, you wanted to modulate. You want to try and modulate in your piece if you can. It gets you additional marks for a starter, and it's not that difficult to do. So, say that, for example, we weren't in C major. Okay, say we wanted to modulate, okay, to be in something different. Okay, all borders and all borders. Okay, so say we wanted to modulate, and you wanted to modulate to the dominant, so you wanted to modulate to G major. G major, looking back on your circle of fifths picture, has 1 sharp, so F sharp. So all the Fs are F sharp, so that would be G, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp. So B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, and A. That's D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C. And the 7th's on chord 2, so it's a G, and the 7th's 2 F, and there we go. So I've now filled in the same grid for G major. Okay, when you want to do something like a modulation, what you do is you will compare chords that are common. So I'm just going to do them green. Okay, so we share certain chords. So chord 1 in C major is chord 4 in G major, so they both have the same chord. Okay, chord I'm gonna yellow this one. Chord of A minor, I'm yellowing. Why? Because it's likely, if you're using it in G major, to potentially have a 7 in it as a 2/7. But in C major, you're not likely to have a 7 on your chord 6. Okay, so they are the same chord, but the one's likely to have one's likely to have a 7 and one isn't. E minor is shared across, okay, 3 and 5, 3 and hence turns into 6. G, again, is a yellow, okay, because it's in C major, G is liable to have a 7 in it, whereas in G major, if you're actually in G major and it's chord 1, it won't, okay? So if we look at that, and then there's chords that are definitely not the same, okay? 100% not the same. Anything basically with an F in it, okay? Anything with an F in it in C major then basically has an F sharp in it in G major, okay? Now, it doesn't mean you can't use these chords. What it means is that to get from one key to another key, you need to use common chords, okay? So if you're playing in C, yeah, you can hear that. So if I'm in C, to A minor, to F, okay, that's all in C major. There are some common keys, the ones in green, so C and E minor, okay? So hence I could go and move into E minor. And the idea then is, when you've chosen a chord that's green, you can either choose a chord that's yellow, yeah, or one that's red. So if I want to move to G major, I might use something which is definitely in G major, okay? So therefore, if I'm going from C into E minor, I might choose a 2 chord, a 2/7 in G, which would be like this. No, it wouldn't. No, it wouldn't either. So there we go. So from there, that is a 2/7, but you could therefore use a 2/7. The idea then you would move from that 2/7, and to get into your new key, you would use 5/1, a perfect cadence, 5/1 in the key you're going to. So then this, okay. So therefore, you're in that chord. Sorry, you're in that key now. Yeah. So you use common chords that are green. You would then, therefore, use a chord that only happens in G major. Okay, so in this case, chord 5, chord 3. If you put kind of something kind of like chord 2. Now, chord 2 is likely to be in an inversion potentially, but yes, chords that are only in G major that are not in C major. So you use common chords, and then to move into G major, you merely use a chord that has an F sharp in it, and then that kind of changes the sound. Like so. So you need to make sure, I'm just going to unhighlight all those, you need to make sure that you understand this, and you need to actually spend some time doing this, okay? It's all on your chords and cadences sheet anyway, but you really need to make sure that you understand this and are looking through this information. When you sit down, you want to get this straight off the bat. Okay, and I'm going to be showing how I'll be using this later on, and I'll probably end up putting it at the side, just kind of constantly, so you can see it and you can see what I'm doing. Inversions. You want to make sure you're using inversions, not all the time, yeah, but you want to make sure you're using them. And again, chords and cadences sheet is important for this because it kind of tells you what you should use. There's a bit on the chords and cadences sheet which says you need to use like first inversions in certain chords are likely, and etc. 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 Again, you come in with that sheet. There's no issues. Come in with that sheet. Come in with some resources. Okay, it's not cheating to come in with some resources, so you can actually get this stuff done quickly. Okay, So generally the examples are normally kind of in either no flats or sharp, so C major, or one sharp, so that's G major, or one flat, that's F major. So usually you've only got three keys to be working with initially, and then obviously work out their dominant or the relative minor. So that's kind of one thing that I want you to make sure you do. It gives you the chords you can potentially use and the notes you can potentially use, and makes your life a lot easier. And you can make those decisions quickly, which is important. So I'm just going to quickly do that and just pop that at the side there. Alrighty then. So that's the first thing, is that you want to make sure that you have got all this stuff sorted. So you have that ready to use whenever it is you need it. The next thing is you need to make sure that as you put stuff into Cubase, that you kind of make decisions on structure pretty early. Okay, so you decide to say, okay, well, I'm going to do, and I'll extend my Excel down here so you can just kind of see it here. That you say, okay, I'm going to decide on my structure. So I'm going to have here we go. I'm going to have an intro for 8 bars. I'm then going to have, I'm saying verse chorus, but it doesn't have to be a pop song, but it's just the idea. So I'm going to have a verse, which is going to be, let's say it's going to be, in fact, let's say intros 4, verses 8, then chorus, which is 8, transition, which is 4, and then verse, which is 8, chorus, which is 8, middle 8, which not surprisingly is 8, chorus 8, outro 4. So you work out what you want your structure to be. Okay. Also, you might work out what key you want to be in. Okay. So if I'm in C major there, still in C major, the transition you could change. It's more likely that the middle 8 will be actually where you would potentially change. Okay. So I'm going to say that I'm going to be in C major in this case up to the middle 8. The middle 8 I'm going to change into the relative minor. Okay, into A minor. And then the chorus, I'm going to go from A minor, and I am going to transition from A minor into, why not, E major. So I'm going to do a dominant of A minor, so E major. And I could work that out. E major has 4 sharps. Okay, E major has 4 sharps. And I can work that out. In fact, I won't be mean, actually. No, I will, actually. I'll go for E major, and I'll try and do this one later. And then the outro will still be in E. So we're going to finish in a different key than we started, but that's not necessarily the end of the world. So I work out that I've worked out a modulation, and this is the things you'll do before you've actually made any music, okay? And if you've got the chord sequence, okay, and this is why I like sometimes using things like you want to be writing this down, little kind of grids, you might even have your chord sequence, okay? So for example, it may be that you're saying, okay, well, I'll have the chord of, 1 second, I'm just going to bold that out. So it might be you have the chord of C, and you want to go 1, C to F, to D minor, to G. And that's the 4 chords you're using, okay? And the next one, you're going to have the same first 4 chords, C, F, D minor, G, A minor, E minor, F, G, 7, and then C. So I'm just going to play that for you. So you got C to F, so that's kind of my intro. I'll probably do it slower than that, but then you've got the Okay. Now, actually, for me, I might want to do that twice, but nonetheless, you could do it twice if you wanted to. I might double verse it, but so I've got. So I go C to F, C to G, so bum, 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 and then I'm just making choices. So A minor to F to G7 to C. Okay, transition C, F, D minor, G. The verse I can straight, and this is why this stuff is useful, because if you make these decisions quickly, I'm not spending long on this. Okay, the chorus is going to be the same. So I've got a chord sequence there. The A minor section, so my chorus there. So I'm going to go A minor into E major. Okay, again, because you'd want to go in and form the grid for A minor. Knowing that in A minor, 1, 4, the major and minor chords are different in this one. Okay, so A, B, C, D, E, F, G. C, E, B, D, F, C, E, G, D, F, A, E, G sharp, B, and D, F, A, C. Now what I'm doing here is I'm kind of doing a combination there to kind of get the chords that's most likely to be used. I've got a G natural on the chord 7, okay, but I've got the G sharp for the harmonic minor, and again, chords and cadences sheet is where you want to look at that. The G sharp for the chord 5, but I've kept chord 3 and chord 7 as major chords, as opposed to an augmented on 3 and a diminished on 7. If you've looked through your chords and cadences sheet, that should make sense at that point. So hence I can look there and say, okay, I'm going to go from A into E minor, but I'm going to do it over G sharp. So I'm doing it in first inversion. Okay, I haven't used any inversions up to that point. Okay, so I'm going to go A minor over G sharp. Then I'm going to go E minor, okay, E minor over G. Then I'm going to go, interestingly enough, I've chosen to go to D major, but why the hell not? So I'm going to go D major. Now, it doesn't actually fit 100% with A minor, but it sounds nice, so it doesn't really matter. If it sounds nice, you're fine. D over F sharp, so A. So F. C. Just play that section. So A, E over G sharp, E minor over G. Okay, so this is where I would put my modulation in. So if I want to get into E, Okay. I need to get into E. So I'm currently go from F back into C, A minor, and if I was going to go into E major, E, F, G, A, B would be B major would be its fifth. Okay, so I'm going to stick a straight B major chord in there. So literally just walk straight up. In fact, let's put a B7. And I would therefore, if this is what I'm doing, let me just bung another version here. And obviously you would be able to write all this stuff down. In fact, 1 second, that's the wrong one to have copied. I want to copy that one. So for E major, it's 4 sharps, and you'd have this on your circle of fifths diagram, like so. You look there, E major, 4 sharps. You'd therefore fill it in. E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, D sharp, E, G sharp, B, F sharp, A, C sharp, E, G sharp, B, D sharp, A, C sharp, E, B, D sharp, F sharp, A, C sharp, E, G sharp, D sharp, F sharp, A. Okay, so I've got my E major. Now, your chorus, therefore, went 1, 4, 1, 5. So therefore, it's very easy if you use Roman numerals to have transpose that. So it went 1, 4, 1, 5, which means this version goes E, okay, to A, E, and then B. Because 1, 4, 1, 5 in E major, it means you can actually work that all out. Okay, so 1, 4, 1, 5. 1, 4, whoops a daisy. 1, 4, 1, 5, and the chorus then goes 6, 4, 5, 7, 1. So 6, 4, 5, 7, 1 would be C sharp, minor. Whoops a daisy. 6, and then 4 is B major. 6, 4, 5, 7 is, oh no, sorry, 4 would be A major. 5 would be B7, and then 1 would be E, and then the outro would be the same as the intro, which therefore the intro is 1, 4, 2, 5. So you do 1, 4, 2, 5 in E, which would be E, A, F sharp minor, F sharp minor, and 5, which would be B, let's say a B7, and it would finally finish on an E, because you'd want it to finish like so on a perfect cadence. At that point, you have then a chord sequence. Okay, now obviously we don't go into G major, but it was there anyway. We have a D and A minor section, you got the chords for that, you've created an E major section, and you then have your chord sequence for the entirety of your piece. Okay, the entirety of your piece then has that chord sequence. It's all been mapped out, it's all been decided upon, and then you just need to then do things like, well, what style are you working in? What kind of style are you going to be going for? Okay, but literally everything's there. Okay, just by using that little bit of theory, that little bit of stuff, and you've got something. And then it's very easy on Cubase. If I just quickly drag this across 1 second. Okay, let me just quickly load that up like so. Like that. Okay, so that's my chord sequence. If I just drag Cubase in here, hopefully you can still see it all okay. Righty, whoops-a-daisy. Coolio. One sec. Yeah, that looks okay to me. Okay, so if that was my chord sequence, then in relatively quick time, you would be able to therefore go in, chord pad if you don't play, piano very well. You would then be able to go in and make some of those decisions. Go into C. Whoops-a-daisy, just turn snap on. Turn to C, and then the thing is, the decisions have already been made for you. You've already done that, so it's a simple matter of going in and doing some choices. Okay. Now my intro, I would just go in and color it. Okay. If you're looking at structure, you want to make sure you're doing things like coloring stuff up. Okay. So you know which section is which. So C, F, D minor, G, A, E minor, F, G7. That's our next section. Like so. Color it up. And then our chorus. C, F, C, G, A minor, F, G7, C. Again, colour that up. And that's when you look at it, and the transition is the same as the intro. So you would therefore go in, and then hence after that you've got another verse, another chorus. Literally the entirety of that, Control D it, because it basically does the same thing. Okay? And then when you get to your middle 8, you can then, and this is before so you've decided in the chord sequence that you kind of think will sound good. So E over G sharp. So E over G sharp. E over G sharp into E minor over G. D over F sharp. D major over F sharp. F, C, A minor. We need to stick in a B7. And then we go through and we colour it up. And it's a new section, so it needs a new colour. We'll make it green. And then we have the chorus, but it's a chorus in our new modulation. So we're in E major. Now I'm going to put it in E major rather than the whole transpose it and then bunk it up stuff like that, because I think it would be nicer to actually see it. So then A major. Then E again. Then B, C sharp minor, to A, B7, to E, another E, to A, to F sharp minor, B7 to E. Obviously the last 5 chords can be coloured pink, and the chords there is our chorus bit in there, so that can be kind of a bluey colour. Okay, so what I've done there is the entirety of the structure of the piece. So we've got intro, verse, chorus, transition, verse, chorus, middle, modulated chorus, modulated outro. So we then have a piece of music that is, this version here would be about 2 minutes. Okay, now I might, for example, say I actually want the tempo to be a little bit slower, so I'm going to say I'd want it to be like 95, and then the composition becomes 2 minutes and 40, which is pretty good length. And obviously then we'll go on later on in what you do with that. But really, chord sequence is where it's at, okay? Is working, even if this was a chord sequence that you were given, if those were the 4 chords you were given, okay, in the chord sequence section, then that'd be great. You know, you could basically use those 4 chords, but then you see what you've done with it. You've modulated it, you've added chords, you've gone into the relative minor, you've gone into the dominant of the relative minor, you've finished in a different key, you've used inversions, you've used sevens, you've not gone crazy, but you've used those things. You've then managed to put them in into Cubase in relatively short amount of time. Again, I've been talking and I'm 36 minutes in, but actually the actual doing of dragging those chords in probably is about a 5-minute job to decide on your chords and then drag them in. And that gives you time to then, what else do you do with it? Okay. So what I'm getting at really here is you need to make sure that there, okay, that stuff is important. Okay, you need to bring some paper with you. You need to bring a pen with you. You need to look at the chords and cadences sheet before you actually do this. You know, it is important. If you come in and you're like, oh, I don't really understand chords, or you haven't looked at it, you're not going to be doing yourself any favors, or me any favors, to be frank, because we have been focusing on this, and I've been telling you for 2 years almost now that it's important that you use this and you remember this, and we've gone through it in a number of lessons. So you should know it by now. You really should. Obviously, chords and cadences. I haven't talked about perfect cadences, but obviously I've mentioned it a couple of times. Obviously, that's a 5-1. That's obviously finishing on a 5. So that's obviously driving you into the next section, and there's a 5-1 at the end of the chorus there before you transition. And I've put in cadences. I hadn't mentioned them, but I have actually planned in those cadences. Okay, even at the end of the end of a chorus, you've got a perfect cadence there. It may even be that chorus there before the middle 8, I could swap C and the G around to create an imperfect cadence. Kind of go to drive through into the middle 8, but I haven't done, so it's not the end of the world. So yeah, I'm about it for this video. I'm about done, but that needs to be done. You need to bring paper, you need to do that, you need to there's no argument. I'll basically expect to see you doing that, and if you don't, then I'll be having some words with you afterwards to ask why you chose to ignore what I said. Those of you who therefore are watching this stream, you're going to be helped. Those of you who haven't, obviously you won't hear me say this, but I'll guarantee those people who don't watch this stream, who don't look at it, and hence who won't necessarily do this, will do worse. They will do worse in this part of the exam, because it is wanting to know your technical understanding of composition. Okay. Yes, it needs to sound good, and yes, choosing a style is great, but you need to choose chords, and the chords need to be chosen around the circle of fifths and around those interrelationships, and using some stuff that we have in the chords and cadences sheet, simple inversions, simple stuff going on. But yeah, and again, modulation, which we've gone through. So that's it for this session. The next few sessions, I'm going to go through and do some examples. Okay, I'm going to do 3 examples and talk through and record 3 examples, just to give you an idea about where you might want to go, how you might want to do things. And yeah, it'll just be me kind of going through stuff, working on that, and hopefully that will be useful. So yeah, that's this session done, and I will see you hopefully in the next session. Bye.